The old truck coughed and rattled its way into the parking lot of Davis Grocery, drawing more attention than any shiny car ever had. Its faded green paint peeled at the edges, and one of the doors looked like it had been kicked in. The muffler dragged slightly, making a scraping sound that turned heads before the engine even stopped. Mrs. Lyle, who always parked near the front to watch the world, squinted at it through her glasses. "That thing belongs in a junkyard," she muttered, nudging her friend beside her. People began whispering. "Must be a drifter. Probably looking for cans. Did you see that truck?" The driver's door creaked open. A man stepped out slowly, wearing worn-out boots and jeans that looked older than some of the kids watching him. His cap was pulled low, shadowing most of his face. He moved stiffly, one leg dragging just slightly, as if each step cost him something. A golden retriever sat calmly in the passenger seat, watching everything with quiet eyes. Some kids pointed and giggled, more at the truck than the dog. One teen even took out her phone and whispered, "This is going viral." But the man didn't react. He just walked into the store with his head down, ignoring the stares. By the time he reached the entrance, half the parking lot had an opinion about him. Homeless probably, maybe just crazy. Why bring that eyesore here? No one knew his name. No one cared to ask. And as the rusty truck sat there under the afternoon sun, its windows rolled down and the dog quietly panting in the heat, not one person imagined who that man really was, or what kind of story that old truck carried inside. It was a rainy afternoon when the man came back to town. No one noticed at first. He drove in quietly, just before sunset, his old truck growling past familiar roads that now felt foreign. The signs had changed. New shops stood where old ones used to be, but the air still smelled the same, like pine trees and distant rain. He didn't stop to talk, didn't call anyone. He drove straight to the edge of town and parked behind an abandoned farmhouse where no one would bother him. The grass was high, the windows boarded up, but he didn't seem to mind. It was quiet there. Peaceful. Within days, whispers started. "Someone's living out there by Miller's Field. I heard he was in prison, for what I don't know. No family. Probably homeless." People made up their own stories. That's what small towns did when they didn't know the truth. They guessed, and they judged. But not everyone forgot. One morning, Mrs. Hart, the widowed librarian with a soft voice and kind eyes, saw him walking past her front yard. She stood frozen, her garden hose still running. She blinked once, then again. "James," she whispered, her hand trembling. The man paused but didn't look up, just gave the tiniest nod before limping on. She didn't tell anyone. Mrs. Hart had known him since he was a boy, before the uniform, before the medals, before the war. She remembered the shy teenager who used to carry her groceries without being asked. Now, he looked older than his years. Worn out, tired. She wanted to call out to him, to ask what happened, but something in his eyes said, "Not yet." So, she let him go. And the rest of the town stayed in the dark. He became a quiet fixture in town. Always alone. Always with the same dog beside him. Every few days the rusty truck would show up outside the grocery store or the gas station. He never stayed long, just bought what he needed, tipped his cap low, and drove off without saying a word. The golden retriever never barked, never left the truck, just sat calmly in the passenger seat like it understood everything. People started calling him the ghost. Not because he was scary, but because he barely existed in the way others did. He moved through town like a shadow, unseen, yet always there. Kids pointed and laughed at his truck. Some of the teens made it a game. They'd post pictures online and caption them with jokes like, "Who let this pile of rust into town?" or "Apocalypse starter pack." But he never reacted, not once. One morning, the town woke up to something worse. Spray painted in red across the truck's side were the words "Loser." It happened overnight, while the truck sat parked behind the old gas station. The dog was still there in the morning, curled up quietly, as if nothing had happened. People saw it, some shook their heads, others snickered. He showed up not long after, stared at the word for a few seconds, then ran his hand gently along the scratched paint. He didn't say anything, didn't yell, just reached into the back of the truck, pulled out a rag, and tried to wipe it off. The paint didn't come off. Still he tried. The dog jumped out and sat next to him, leaning its head against his leg, and the man kept scrubbing, in silence. That day, for the first time, Mrs. Hart cried. The town's annual fall parade was a big deal. Marching bands, cheer squads, tractors, and candy tossed to the kids lining the sidewalks. But the most respected part of the day was always the Veterans Walk. Each year, those who had served would march down Main Street, holding flags and wearing their uniforms with pride. Chairs lined both sides of the road. People clapped, waved, and saluted as the veterans passed by. Names were read aloud over the loudspeaker, followed by polite applause. Flags fluttered in the breeze. It was tradition. It was routine, until the truck came. It showed up just as the veterans began their walk. The rusty engine sputtered to a stop, and heads turned. Gasps, murmurs. The same old dented truck, dirty, spray-painted, out of place. He stepped out, slowly, wearing a simple dark jacket. The dog hopped down beside him, and walked in perfect step. No leash, just loyalty. Some people laughed, others looked annoyed. A few whispered, "Why's he here?" Then the announcer, standing at the podium in front of Town Hall, froze. His voice crackled over the microphone. "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel James Grayson." The crowd went still. Not quiet, still. Mouths dropped open. Eyes went wide. Someone dropped their cup of coffee. "Colonel James Grayson," a woman near the front repeated in shock. "The Grayson?" Whispers exploded like fireworks. "He's the one from Afghanistan. The ambush. He saved his entire unit, took shrapnel to the leg. I thought he died." "No, he disappeared. After the war. No one knew where he went." The man didn't react to the attention. He just kept walking, slow but steady, with the golden retriever at his side. The crowd parted for him like a wave. People stood, people saluted. Some had tears in their eyes. Mrs. Hart, sitting in the front row, pressed a hand to her chest. "He came home," she whispered. And for the first time since he'd returned, no one saw the truck, or the limp, or the worn-out clothes. They saw the hero. And everything began to change. After the parade, the town buzzed like never before. People who once ignored the man in the rusty truck now wanted to shake his hand. Some apologized. Some just stared in silence, unsure of what to say. Local news showed up the next morning. A young reporter, barely out of college, caught Colonel Grayson outside the grocery store. His truck still had Loser faintly visible beneath a layer of scrubbing, but no one was laughing now. The reporter spoke gently, careful not to push. "Sir, people are talking about your bravery, but they're also talking about your dog. Can you tell us about him?" Grayson looked down at the golden retriever sitting by his boot. For a moment, he didn't say anything. His hand reached down and rested on the dog's head. "That's Shadow," he said quietly. He's the reason I'm still here." The reporter tilted her mic closer. "Was he your service dog?" Grayson nodded, his voice catching. "Yeah, we served together overseas. He was trained to detect explosives, alert me to danger. But what he did that day," he paused, taking a breath. His eyes glistened, and he didn't hide it. "We got ambushed. I was hit, couldn't move. There was fire, bullets flying everywhere. I thought it was over. But Shadow, he crawled to me, bit into my vest, and dragged me out. I don't know how he had the strength, but he didn't stop." People nearby had gathered, listening. "He got shot too. Took a hit to the side. They retired him after that. Said he was too injured, but I couldn't leave him. Not after what he did, so I brought him home." Grayson looked down again. Shadow wagged his tail once, slow and steady. "We've been together ever since," he said. "He's more than a dog. He's my brother." The reporter wiped a tear. The camera kept rolling, capturing something far deeper than a story. A bond born in fire, forged in pain, and held together by silent loyalty. From that day on, no one called the truck ugly again. Because they knew what rode in the passenger seat wasn't just a dog, it was a hero. A few days after the parade, the truth began to spread, not through gossip this time, but through respect. It started at the local diner, where an old veteran named Hank Sims sat sipping his usual black coffee. He was known for being quiet, tough, and not one to get involved in town drama. But that morning, he stood up, cleared his throat, and asked for a moment of attention. "I served with him," Hank said, nodding toward a photo of Grayson in the morning paper. Colonel James Grayson wasn't just any soldier. He was the real deal. A leader who took the hits so his men didn't have to. The diner fell silent. He didn't disappear because he didn't care. After the war, he struggled. The kind of stuff no medal can fix. He had PTSD bad, couldn't sleep, couldn't be around crowds. So he did what a lot of us wish we could have done. He got out, lived off the grid. People listened closely, some holding their coffee cups mid-air. But he came back, not for himself. For Shadow. Hank's voice cracked slightly. Shadow got sick, real sick. Needed surgery, meds, constant care. Grayson didn't have insurance, didn't ask for help. He sold everything. His medals, his house, even family heirlooms. The only thing he kept was that old truck, and Shadow. A woman near the counter whispered, "All this time, we thought." "I know," Hank nodded. "We thought wrong." The story spread like wildfire, but not the kind that destroyed. This one healed. People felt ashamed for how they judged him. For every photo they laughed at, for every name they called him. Some folks drove out to the farmhouse, and left groceries on his porch. Others donated money to help with Shadow's treatment. The teens who once spray-painted his truck, came back with fresh paint, and quietly cleaned every inch of it. For the first time since Grayson returned, the town saw not just a man and his dog, but a story of sacrifice, love, and unshakable loyalty. And they realized, sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms anymore. Sometimes they drive rusty trucks. The town changed almost overnight. The same teens who had once mocked Grayson's rusty truck, now gathered on his lawn, paintbrushes in hand, ready to make things right. They didn't laugh anymore. They didn't joke. They worked quietly, one stroke after another, covering the old paint with fresh colors, a coat of red, white, and blue that seemed to shine with new meaning. "I'm sorry," one of the boys muttered as he worked. "We didn't know." Grayson, standing in the doorway of his home, just nodded. He didn't say much, but there was something in his eyes that made the boy pause. Meanwhile, the town had come together in ways no one had expected. A local fundraising event was organized, with everyone, from the grocery store clerk to the mayor, donating to help pay for Shadow's surgery. They had all heard the full story now, and they knew it wasn't just about a dog. It was about a man who had given everything for others, and deserved something in return. A week later, Colonel James Grayson received a letter that would change everything. It came from a veterans group, one he had never thought would notice him, let alone offer him something. They wanted him, to be a mentor for young soldiers. The words were simple but filled with respect. They were offering him a chance to pass on his wisdom, his experience, and most importantly, his story of resilience. It was a recognition he hadn't sought, but one that felt like it was meant for him all along. For years, Grayson had walked this earth feeling invisible. He had been ignored, misunderstood, and judged. But now, just like that, he was the quiet hero of a town that had once looked the other way. The same people who had whispered behind his back, who had laughed at the sight of his rusted truck, now saw him differently. The truck, once dismissed as a relic of a forgotten life, had become a symbol. A badge of honor, carrying the weight of everything Grayson had endured, the wars, the pain, the loss, and the love he had for his dog, Shadow. The man who had once seemed broken, with no place to call home, was now home in a way he hadn't been in years. His truck wasn't just a vehicle anymore, it was a reminder of sacrifice, of the things he had given up, and the loyalty that had carried him through it all. It was a symbol of redemption, not just for him, but for the town that had failed to see his worth until now. For the first time in so long, Colonel James Grayson felt at peace. He felt like he truly belonged. "I grew up in this town, in a place where the pace of life was slow, and where everyone knew each other's business, whether they wanted to or not. It was a small town, the kind where gossip could spread like wildfire, where people were kind but often quick to judge. There was something special about the people here, though a warmth that shone through, even when they didn't know how to show it. But that warmth was often masked by assumptions, by the idea that people had to fit into neat little boxes. And then, one man and his dog came back to this town, and showed us all what real courage looked like. Colonel James Grayson didn't need the parades, the applause, or the recognition. He didn't come home wearing his military uniform, didn't talk about the medals he had earned. He didn't boast about the heroic acts that had made him a legend among soldiers. He came back as just a man with a dog by his side, carrying the weight of his past, and trying to heal. He wasn't seeking praise, but in his quiet way, he was giving us all something far more valuable than any ceremony could ever provide. And that truck, once ridiculed, once mocked, became something far greater than anyone could have imagined. It wasn't just a rusty old vehicle anymore, it became a symbol of strength, of perseverance, and of quiet dignity. It reminded us all that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that don't demand attention, they just are. And it made us realize that sometimes, the most broken-looking things carry the most profound stories inside them. Grayson's truck wasn't just a vehicle, it was a testament to survival, to the sacrifices he made, the struggles he faced, and the bond he shared with his loyal dog Shadow. It was a reminder that true courage isn't about being perfect or flawless. It's about the willingness to keep going, to push forward, even when the world seems to have forgotten you, and in that we learn something incredibly important. Sometimes the people who seem the most invisible, the ones who walk quietly through life, are the ones who carry the greatest stories of all. And so, the story of Colonel James Grayson and his loyal dog Shadow reminds us all that courage doesn't always look like we expect. Sometimes, the most humble, even broken things, carry the greatest stories of sacrifice, love, and redemption. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales, and leave us a comment below. What does courage look like to you? Thanks for watching, and remember, heroes come in all shapes, sizes, and yes, even rusty trucks.